Imagine this. The whole world just watching, really holding its breath, looking towards Alaska.
Yeah.
That huge meeting, Putin and Trump, everyone was hoping maybe for some kind of breakthrough.
You really felt the weight of it. I mean, this war in Ukraine, it's been going on since what, February 2022? Over 3 years.
Such a long time.
And we've had these moments before, right? Hopes for a ceasefire, maybe a deal, and then fizzle, nothing.
Always fizzle out.
So this summit, yeah, it really did feel in a way like maybe the last chance.
Exactly. And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're going to try and unpack what actually happened there in Anchorage.
Mm-hmm.
Why was this specific meeting so critical right now for the war? And crucially, what were the optics?
The optics are so important here.
Or not just what went down, but how it looked to the world, how it was perceived. That shapes everything going forward.
Definitely.
So think of this as your shortcut. We've gone through the sources to help you get truly informed on this, well, pivotal moment.
Yeah, we've got news reports, geopolitical analysis, even some academic takes. We've tried to pull out the key insights.
The goal is really to help you understand not just the what, but the why. Why does this actually matter in the grand scheme of things? We'll hit some surprising facts, different viewpoints along the way.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The meeting kicked off late on August 15th, local time, Anchorage, Alaska. And it lasted a full 3 hours.
3 hours is significant. And the location itself, Anchorage, fascinating choice.
Why there specifically? What's the significance?
Well, it was held at the Elmendorf-Richardson Joint Base. That's a massive U.S. military installation.
Yeah.
And get this, it's only about 700 miles from Russia.
Wow, that close.
Yeah. So you see the symbolism, right? Both leaders could kind of leverage that. A demilitarized zone near Russia. It projects this image of, engagement, parity, even if the real outcome was different.
Interesting. And it was Putin's first trip to Alaska. First U.S. visit in years.
Exactly. His 8th trip overall to the U.S. during his presidency, but yeah, first to Alaska, first in a long time. Which underlines how big a deal this was meant to be.
And there was real pageantry involved, too, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Red carpets, both leaders coming down the plane steps, a podium that said Alaska 2025. You had Air Force One in the background, military jets.
Wow.
It was quite the spectacle, very carefully staged to look, well, important, gravitas.
So the stage was set. But beyond the symbols, why now? Why was this meeting so monumental? Where, as you said, over 3 years into the war, Russia annexed Crimea back in 2014, then made big moves into places like Luhansk in 2022. They controlled a pretty big chunk of eastern Ukraine now.
That's right.
What were the kind of underlying fears
Yeah.
for Ukraine and its allies going into this?
That's really the crux of it. For Kyiv, for President Zelensky, the number one fear was that this meeting between Putin and Trump could basically make Russia's control over those territories official.
Oh, okay. So even though Russia rules them now?
Exactly. Internationally, they're still seen as Ukraine. Zelensky was terrified they might just lose them on paper,
Right.
There was that saying going around, if you are not on the table, you are on the menu.
Powerful. And Ukraine wasn't at the table.
Not literally, no. They felt their fate was being decided without them.
And that anxiety, it wasn't just in Kyiv, was it? What about European leaders?
No, it was widespread. European governments were making noise publicly and privately. They were really apprehensive.
About Ukraine being excluded?
Yes. They felt very strongly that Kyiv had to be part of these talks. Any kind of compromise on Ukraine's territory without Ukraine present,
Yeah.
well, they saw that as completely unacceptable.
A dangerous precedent, maybe?
Potentially, yes. For international law, for how these things are handled.
So they get inside. The meeting itself, pretty tightly controlled.
Very. Sources say reporters were allowed in, for a quick photo op at the start.
Just the visuals.
Right. You saw Trump, Putin, their teams, national security advisors, foreign ministers. But then, doors closed. Just Putin and Trump, one-on-one.
For those 3 hours.
For the core of it, yes.
And what was the feeling when they finally came out? What was the mood?
Well, what's really telling is what didn't happen.
Okay.
They both made statements, sure, but they took 0 questions from the press.
No questions at all. That's unusual for something this big.
Highly unusual. It immediately made everyone wonder, how transparent is this? What actually got decided? It created this real sense of mystery.
So all that buildup, the world watching, and then basically secrecy.
Pretty much.
What did they say in their statements? Was there a ceasefire? Was that the big breakthrough moment?
No, no ceasefire announced. That was clear straight away.
So the war continues?
Looks like it.
Yeah.
It could even intensify based on the immediate read. Trump said he wanted a ceasefire, but he also said he needed to consult with European leaders, with Zelensky, to move things forward. He kept saying the meeting was substantive. But then he added that classic Trump line, there is no deal without a deal.
No deal without a deal.
Right.
So basically, good talks, but nothing concrete agreed.
Exactly. Productive, perhaps, but no actual agreement signed or sealed.
And Putin, did he say something similar?
He did, essentially. He said, we reached some understanding on some issues, but he also confirmed no formal agreement came out of it.
Interesting. So understanding, but no deal.
And you know, the key insight here from some analysts is that this lack of a public deal, it might not be a failure, it could be deliberate.
How so?
Well, this ambiguity, it leaves room to maneuver later, doesn't it? Keeps everyone guessing. Ukraine, Europe, the whole international community.
Keeps options open.
Right. And it potentially shifts the power dynamics for whatever negotiations come next. It also maybe keeps the door open for more meetings, like Trump going to Moscow, perhaps, though nothing like that was announced.
Just speculation at this point.
Pure speculation, yeah. But the ambiguity allows for it.
Okay, so given this carefully managed ambiguity, what was the immediate reaction, especially from Ukraine?
Well, Zelensky came out publicly, pretty forcefully. He said Ukraine would absolutely not accept any deal that meant losing territory.
Back to being on the menu.
Exactly. He repeated that sentiment. And European leaders echoed those fears that the meeting might accidentally, validate Russia's position or lead to a deal that was too favorable to Moscow.
There was pressure domestically in the U.S. too, right? I remember seeing something about Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that was quite a statement. She said, maybe somewhat provocatively, that she'd nominate Trump for a Nobel Prize if he got a ceasefire and got all the territory back for Ukraine.
Wow, highlighting the huge stakes and expectations.
Absolutely immense pressure.
But despite all that, the sort of big takeaway, the consensus among international observers, seemed to be that Putin, well, he walked away with a win, at least in terms of optics.
That's a really key point from the sources, yes. Optically, it was seen as a significant victory for Putin.
How did he manage that, exactly? Especially with no concrete deal announced. What does that tell us about, the power of perception?
It really comes back to that choreography, the staging. Think about it. There was an international warrant out for him from the ICC. There were calls for his arrest if he traveled.
Right, I remember that.
But here he was, stepping onto U.S. soil in Alaska, no incident, a planned meeting. Even down to, the symmetrical number of bodyguards and cameras on both sides.
Projecting equality.
Exactly. It let him project this image of being a legitimate negotiator and equal on the world stage. It showed that Western efforts to isolate him, well, they hadn't completely worked.
So the isolation failed, in a sense.
In that visual sense, yes.
Yeah.
The sources flat out call it a major win for him in terms of perception. It made Russia look potentially stronger, still selling oil, maybe heading towards sanctions being lifted. There was a former U.S. ambassador, Ian Kelly, who put it really bluntly. He said there was no upside for the U.S., only an upside for Putin.
Ouch. That's quite a statement.
Yeah, it is. It really was seen by many as a masterclass in managing global perception.
Okay, so we've got this high-stakes meeting, very carefully staged, lots of ambiguity in the outcome, but a clear perception winner in Putin. What does this mean going forward? What are the possible scenarios now, based on the analysis you've seen?
Well, the sources seem to outline three main possibilities, roughly.
Okay.
First, short term. The war probably just continues. It might even get worse for a bit. Russia possibly trying to grab more territory while talks maybe continue in the background. But no ceasefire anytime soon?
Grim, but maybe realistic. What's the second scenario?
Second scenario involves that follow-up meeting we mentioned, Trump potentially traveling to Moscow.
Right.
And that scenario suggests a potential deal where perhaps the territories Russia holds now become officially theirs, and maybe sanctions against Moscow get lifted as part of that package.
Which would be Ukraine's worst fear realized.
Pretty much, yes.
Is there a third way? A scenario where Ukraine actually gets a seat at the table, finally.
That's the third possibility floated. That Zelensky gets invited to a future meeting. You'd have a trilateral summit, Putin, Trump, Zelensky. And maybe that could lead to some kind of lasting solution.
Okay, that sounds more hopeful.
It does, but the analysis also suggests there's a strong chance Ukraine might still have to give up territory in the coming months. Russia's position is still seen as pretty strong.
So even in the best-case scenario, concessions might be needed.
It seems likely a ceasefire might happen, maybe by the end of the year, but probably with Russia keeping control over significant parts of those regions, that seems to be the assessment.
Wow. Okay. So clearly, this deep dive has given us a lot to think about. A really complex event, high stakes, lots of layers. We've tried to distill it down for you from the sources we had.
Yeah, hopefully providing a clearer picture of this moment.
To recap the key takeaways then, no immediate ceasefire was announced, that's clear.
Right. Though both leaders hinted at some kind of understanding being reached privately, what that means, we don't really know yet.
And critically, the optics. The perception, especially internationally, was that Putin came out looking stronger, scoring a significant victory in that sense, even without a formal deal.
Definitely a big win on the perception front for him, which of course leaves Ukraine still in a very uncertain, difficult position despite all this diplomacy happening at the highest levels.
So as you're processing all of this, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Given that Ukraine, a key player here, wasn't actually at the negotiating table feeling like they were, quote, on the menu, what does this summit really tell us about the chances for genuine peace in these really complex global conflicts?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
How might the absence of certain parties, the ones most affected, shape what happens next? And just what stands out to you personally about how these leaders handle it?